Chiefs fans may have noticed that it really felt like early in the game, Nick Bolton was getting taken advantage of in pass coverage. And the stats bear it out. There were 5 completions against him in coverage for a total of 55 yards. But Chiefs fans may have also noticed that later in the game, we didn't really see them completing a lot of passes on Nick Bolton anymore. So let's take a look at the film and see some plays from the first half and then some others from the second half and see what the differences were. Why did it feel like Nick Bolton was a liability in coverage so much more in the first half of the game than in the second half? We're going to start with 13:40 to go in the first quarter. The opening drive of the game, the Lions have a 3rd and 5 at the Chiefs' 34-yard line. Jared Goff is IDing coverage in the shotgun. He's got 2 to his right, 2 to his left. He sends Sam Laporta in motion, throws it out left to Laporta, who makes a catch for a gain of about 11 yards and a first down, moving the chains. So, what happened on this play? So, if we look at what the Chiefs are trying to do here, the Chiefs are coming out here to combat the Lions personnel. The Lions are in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. The Chiefs match this by going nickel. So they've got 5 defensive backs on the field, 3, 4, 5, and 2 linebackers, Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill. So ultimately what the Chiefs are doing here is they're going to blitz Tranquill and Jalen Watson off the edge. So they're going to end up sending 6. And so behind that, you're going to have man-to-man, man-to-man. We're going to have to rotate here and play man. And then Nick Bolton is man-to-man on Sam Laporta. It looks like the Lions at the beginning have kind of a man ID on this play, and because this play is set up to be run against man coverage, especially if Nick Bolton is guarding the tight end. So if you notice, Laporta comes here on motion and Bolton has to follow, right? So he's already at a disadvantage. He's out leveraged to the outside because the guy's in motion and Bolton is lagging behind. Now, Laporta is faster than Bolton anyway, so giving him a head start is unfortunate. But then look at the route combination. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown running a slant route, which really appears to be a pick route in this situation, to give more interference for Bolton to have to run through and create this gap. And just look at how much room he's got. I mean, it was the perfect play to call in this situation. So it looks like the Lions had ID'd man. They realized Bolton was on the tight end, and they had a nice play set up to make it an easy conversion to take advantage of. And, I don't want it to come across. I think, those of us that actually dispassionately want to understand the game, we can hold 2 competing thoughts in our heads. One being that Nick Bolton is a very good to very good linebacker and not a great to elite one, but it's definitely an asset to have on your team and someone who I'm very glad is a Chief. And that he's not the most fleet of foot in pass coverage and will always kind of struggle against more athletic players, especially when asked to play man coverage or to cover a lot of ground in his zone, because it's just not his strong suit. He's really good at other things. That's just not the thing he's good at. And in this case, the Lions took advantage on a big 3rd down and kept the chains moving. So you can see from the end zone camera, look, Laporta already has leverage to the outside against Bolton. Right? He's already got him beat outside. And by the time the ball gets there, look at all that room. This is just not a matchup that's going to work in the Chiefs' favor, especially if they're able to try to get Bolton to cover sideline to sideline. Now, we're later on that same drive. The Lions have a 1st and 10 at the Chiefs' 44-yard line. Jared Goff's under center this time. He's got 2 to his left, 2 to his right. Fakes a handoff to Jahmyr Gibbs, drops back and throws a crosser to Jamison Williams. Gets 15 yards and another first down on a chunk play. All right, so what the Chiefs are doing this time, here we are again in our nickel, right? The Lions are in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. The Chiefs have 2 linebackers. They have their 4 D linemen. And then they've got 5 defensive backs. Now the Chiefs blitz off the end here. And so then ultimately Jaden Hicks rotates down and takes Trent McDuffie's responsibilities. Brian Cook rotates over and Shamari Connor rotates back. So you can see this in action here if you see the secondary rotation. And it looks like they're playing quarters principles, which essentially means for our purposes, if we're just going to focus on ultimately Nick Bolton's responsibilities here, the wide receiver who makes the catch, Jameson Williams, he's running a drag route. So what the Lions have is they've got routes coming up the field, they've got Laporta going out, and they've got Jameson Williams running a drag. So if typically McDuffie would be the guy that is covering Williams, but McDuffie's blitzing. So now it comes down to Jaden Hicks. What the basic principles for Hicks are is that he's going to guard Jameson Williams one-on-one unless he runs a drag. And if he runs this drag route, then he gets passed off to defenders underneath. Tranquil, most likely, if this is the coverage that it looks like it is, he's also responsible like first to the flat. So he's going to be watching Laporta as he tries to block and then come out and then be interested in making sure he doesn't get out leveraged that way. But ultimately, when the drag route has to be passed off, if there is no one to the flat to Tranquil, who will ultimately pass it to Bolton, or if Tranquil's watching the flat, then that needs to be passed off to Bolton. What ends up happening is Bolton is staying underneath the seam here, and my guess is really it's got to be Hicks that's got to call this out, because it's not like Bolton is sitting and waiting for a crosser. It's got to be someone's got to call push and let him know that someone's coming. That's my guess. Again, like this is assumption here at what the Chiefs are trying to do, but this is what it looks like. It looks like essentially the number 1 outside receiver, Watson staying on top of Connor, staying on top over here. Then Cook is essentially going to get depth and try to look for anything coming across. Hicks is going to get depth because his guy went underneath, but somebody's got to carry this underneath. And Bolton, if there was no underneath route, this is what he'd be doing, right? Getting up and trying to get underneath any middle of the field route. But somebody has to alert him that the drag is coming in order for him to be able to cover that. However, it doesn't really matter because ultimately you're having one of the fastest guys in the entire league and the guy that's responsible for him, again, Nick Bolton. And so this ultimately looks even worse than it would have because of the miscommunication by the Chiefs. But even if that hadn't happened, I mean, Bolton trying to run with Williams is not where you want to be. And the Lions, again, for the second time on their opening drive, managed to get one of their best pass catchers isolated on Nick Bolton and got a big gain out of it. Now you'll see from the end zone view, Bolton's, he's immediately turned back and he's looking to stay underneath the crossers from the bunch. When Jameson Williams comes here, someone should be yelling out so that Bolton can hear and know that, okay, we've got a crosser, like you're the one that's going to be responsible for that. So based on my understanding of what is happening here, it's not Bolton's fault that he's not there initially. That needs to be communicated to him. But in any case, even if he were running with Williams, he wouldn't be running with Williams. I mean, Williams is one of the fastest people in the league. And the Lions successfully got him isolated on Nick Bolton. And we get to 12:56 to go in the second quarter. The Lions are down 6-3, and they have a 3rd and 3 at the Chiefs' 22-yard line. Jared Goff's in the shotgun. He's got 2 to the right, 2 to the left. He's got David Montgomery in the backfield with him. Motions in Laporta. Steps back and throws it over the middle to Jameson Williams, who's able to cut up and into the end zone for a touchdown to give the Lions the lead. All right, so the Chiefs' defense in this situation, they have got their nickel personnel in again. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs. They've got Bolton and Tranquil, and then it looks like they've just got 4 down linemen. No like sneaking Leo Chanel in there this time. And essentially they're running, they're doing some match coverage, but ultimately it's like a cover one principle, right? You have Brian Cook over the top. You have Watson and man coverage, and the underneath guys are sorting the crossing routes, but essentially running with them, and Bolton is the robber underneath. So essentially you have 2 guys, one middle of the field safety for middle of the field close coverage, and then you have one kind of underneath robber, and everybody else is essentially in man coverage. These 2 are passing off crossers, but ultimately they fall into man coverage. And they've got Bolton again in the middle of the field, and what the Lions do with their route combination. So Amon-Ra St. Brown runs a crosser. Montgomery comes up from the backfield and does the opposite crosser. On this side, you have a clear out route, and then a sideline down to the sideline, and then Jamison Williams is your big route here, and he's just going to run a dig back in behind Bolton. And so Watson, playing outside leverage, doesn't want to get beat outside. He's got a safety over the middle. The safety, though, gets occupied. Brian Cook gets occupied by the clear out route. And as he drops back with the clear out route, that creates this nice void in between him and Nick Bolton, because Bolton has eyes on the crosser, and then here realizes that he needs a little more depth and just doesn't quite have the speed to get there, and isn't able to, he gets close, but he's not able to close that window. And once Jamison Williams has the ball on the run, it's a tough proposition. You can see it from Goff's perspective. So look at Bolton here. He's sorting the underneath crossing routes, then tries to get more depth and just isn't quite able to close that down. The dig comes in right in behind him. So as you see again, the Chiefs are playing Bolton there in the middle of the field. This isn't like bad coverage, but Bolton's range is limited in this situation, and really, with Drew Tranquil, 2023 Drew Tranquil had some pretty good range. Last year, not as much. This year, he's looked better in coverage than he did last year. But the Chiefs are not really big on coverage linebackers. The one guy who could cover some ground was Willie Gay, but he was, not able to diagnose plays like guys like Bolton and Tranquil can. But basically what I'm saying is, it's not like they have a ton of alternatives. But again, Bolton put in a tough spot here, not able to close the gap. The Lions take advantage in the middle of the field. So now we jump ahead to 22 seconds to go in the first half. The Chiefs are up 13-10, and the Lions have a 3rd and 2 at their 40-yard line. Jared Goff's in the shotgun. He's got 3 to his left, 1 to his right. Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield with him. He motions a receiver from left to right. He checks. And then takes the snap. Drops back to throw, moves about in the pocket, and then tries to throw it right to Jahmyr Gibbs. It's incomplete, bringing up 4th down. Okay, so what is different about this play? It's another key play of the game. Now, near the end of the first half, the Chiefs are playing their nickel again, but this is the 3-3-5 nickel because they've got Leo Chanel in on the field. So they only have 3 defensive linemen on the field, and they have 3 linebackers, but they maintain 5 defensive backs, which gives you their nickel package. One thing, important to note is how often the nickel guy is Noel Williams versus Jaden Hicks coming in. In this case, it is Noel Williams, which means that Trent McDuffie ends up in the slot. But we're talking about Nick Bolton here and what his responsibilities are. And if you notice, the Chiefs are just playing a cover 1 man, but they've got Bolton manned up against the running back. So now he's not covering like a primary pass catcher. He's covering the running back out in the flat. They actually don't have a robber defender in their cover 1. Their deep defender is Chris Roland Wallace. But instead of an underneath robber, they double team Amon-Ra St. Brown. So Noel Williams and Shamari Connor are doubling Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you've got man coverage. Tranquil is on the tight end, Laporta. And everybody else is manned up. So now you have a situation where Bolton is on somebody that's not a, seasoned route runner nor a seasoned pass catcher, and he and Goff are not able to get on the same page. Here at this point, he flares out to the right. Goff seemed to expect him to turn this up a little bit, and so Goff threw it down the field a little more. Weren't on the same page. Chiefs are able to get off the field. It helped here that I think Goff was a little spooked by Karlaftis' rush around the arc, although Penei Sewell did a good job of keeping him well deep of the quarterback. I mean, Goff could have hung out in the pocket a little bit more here. He wasn't in that much trouble, but he seemed to feel sped up at this point and just got rid of it. And as you can see, based on where the ball lands like there, he's expecting Gibbs to have turned this up. And that's the benefit of, running backs don't have the same level of nuance and chemistry nor catching ability as wide receivers. The Chiefs, instead of, we saw him, Bolton manned on Sam Laporta earlier. Now he's manned up against Jahmyr Gibbs. A much more favorable matchup for the Chiefs. So here you can see Goff threw that more into like the 44-yard line, and Gibbs he's almost 9 yards ahead of where Gibbs was, so he was clearly expecting him to turn it up, and Gibbs kept it flat. We're now at 9:55 to go in the third quarter. The Chiefs are up 20-10, and the Lions have a third and about 3 at their own 33-yard line or so, 32-yard line. Jared Goff's in shotgun. He's got 2 to his left, 2 to his right. Then he sends Amon-Ra St. Brown in motion from right to left. Goff makes a check at the line. He takes the snap, drops back, throws a quick slant to St. Brown, who gets the first down, a 4-yard gain. So, the Chiefs in coverage on this one. They are in there. Looks like they're in their 3-3-5 nickel again. They've got 3 down linemen. Chanel is right here. Bolton. Well, that's actually not a 3-3-5. I can't tell who that is in the slot. No, this is actually a dime. This is a 3-2-6 dime. So they've got the 3 down linemen, as we said. Looks like it's just Chanel and Bolton as linebackers, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive backs. Yeah, so this is a dime. And again, they end up running a cover 1, but instead of having Bolton kind of play robber underneath, which he had been doing sometimes in their cover 1, they have him blitz. And Bolton blitzes here, so then Cook ends up being responsible for the running back, and then you got man-to-man coverage with 1 deep safety. And Bolton actually hangs on, as he then kind of does enough with his rush to occupy the center, and then drops off to try to get in an underneath passing lane and gets very close to knocking this pass down. But it ends up getting to St. Brown, and he gets the first down. But again, you see Bolton's usage here. Now in the cover 1, he's occupying the blocker. He drops off not far, actually, from actually knocking that throw down. But you see, again, on a key play here, they're not entrusting, or even entrusting is the wrong word. I feel like they're not burdening Bolton with having to, run with guys in the middle of the field or cover large swaths of zone because he was getting picked on. Now you see the adjustment. We've had Bolton covering a back. Now we've had him rush, and then you allow him to kind of hit an underneath area, but we're not expecting him or relying on him to make big plays in the middle of the field or run with faster players. So it seems like an adjustment is afoot, but we'll keep paying attention later in the game to see if this comes up on any other key downs. We are now at 7:28 to go in the third quarter. Chiefs are up 20-10, and the Lions have a 3rd and 11 at the Chiefs' 29-yard line. Jared Goff's in the shotgun. He's got trips to his right. Jahmyr Gibbs with him in the backfield. Takes a quick snap, throws right to Jahmyr Gibbs, who gets cut down by Brian Cook for a quick stop, bringing up a big 4th down. Again, let's look at the Chiefs' coverage and their usage of Nick Bolton on this play. So the way they're lined up here, this is a pretty big indicator for a potential cover 0, right? They have no deep safety in the middle of the field. Their safety here, Brian Cook, is up over the bunch. They have, kind of aligned so that you could believe man coverage, or potentially that they're blitzing McDuffie here. And so it looks like the Lions, based on this, check to a screen to the outside. They're anticipating when you get a bunch of people coming, a great play call is a quick screen to the outside, try to get some numbers and bust something loose if you don't have safety play down in the middle of the field. The Chiefs kind of rotate out of it a little bit late. They actually drop Drew Tranquil as the deep safety, and McDuffie drops out a little bit too, but really it still ends up being 2 receivers, 3 defenders, and hopefully for them it will be 2-on-2 and Williams can get out to the outside. Again, the usage of Bolton is our key here. On a big 3rd down here, they're blitzing him. So again, we've seen, early he was being used as man coverage on Laporta. He was being used in deep zone coverage or just middle of the field coverage. And now since then he covered a linebacker and he's been blitzing. So here he's blitzing again. And the mistake that the Lions make with trying these passes out to the end is that the Chiefs defensive backs are such good tacklers. We see this. I made an entire video on it last year when they played the Texans during the regular season. I think the title of the video is like, why did the Texans keep testing the Chiefs corners on the boundary or something like that? Because Chiefs defensive backs tackle really well. This seems to be like they just want you to do this. Go ahead, throw it underneath. We'll stop you. But it was almost like the Lions got baited into this one because of the initial cover 0 look before they dropped Tranquil. And, they were ready. They felt the blitz coming, which, there was a heavy blitz coming. But this is just strategically, the Chiefs corners are so good at breaking down and getting you before you can get ahead of steam. Because, of course, if you have a screen with Jameson Williams and he gets going, that's terrifying. But the Chiefs have been very good through Spagnuolo's time in Kansas City at making sure you can't get going. But again, you got the Bolton blitz up the A-gap. Quick throw, and look at that by Brian Cook, just ducking a block, making a big stop. We're now at 8:07 to go in the game. The Chiefs are up 27-17, and the Lions have a 3rd and 10 at their own 26-yard line. Jared Goff is in the shotgun. He's got 3 to his right, but motions Amon-Ra St. Brown from right to left. He's changing the protection at the line. Takes a snap and is hit by Chris Jones and sacked by Charles Omenihu. Again, let's take a look at the coverage and Nick Bolton's usage in this play. The Chiefs come out again looking like they are in dime. And again, they've got Leo Chanel, so it's that 3-2-6 dime. 3 down linemen. The 2 linebackers are Chanel and Nick Bolton. And here are your 6 defensive backs. 3, 4, 5, 6. So what the Chiefs do here in response to the motion, they're going to rush their 4, and they have Nick Bolton again taking on the running back. So they really isolated him against backs when in man coverage as much as possible. This again looks like just a cover one man with different pass-off principles. Noah Williams and it looks like, honestly, there was probably supposed to be a double here. Noah Williams was probably supposed to double with Chamari Connor on Amon-Ra St. Brown again because of the switch release here. McDuffie's running with Jamison Williams. I think Noah Williams was supposed to stay here on the double would be my guess, but he kind of started wandering. But the important point here being that, again, on another critical play, 3rd down, Nick Bolton isolated on the running back. They have not, on any of these key plays, since starting toward the end of the second quarter, really after the first 2 drives of the game, Spagnuolo really seemed to shut down any idea of Nick Bolton being responsible for covering a tight end or being responsible for large zones in the middle of the field. Strategically, they kind of had him, he's been blitzing or covering a running back on every important defensive play since then. While we're looking at this play, we should really give our flowers to Chris Jones here, who made this happen. Look at him against the right guard here. Absolutely, just one moving by him just destroys. I mean, no chance. A very quick win. He's not able to complete the sack, but the step up of Jared Goff that's caused here allows Omenihu to come and clean it up. And again, that's the importance of the complementary pass rush. You can't just have one guy that's winning. When you have one guy that's winning, it's nice to have another guy to clean it up, because if Omenihu's not there, Goff might be able to scramble. Goff might be able to make a play happen, especially because if he had just a split second more, Jamison Williams is just running across the field. And, McDuffie is back there closing, and you have Hicks too, but I don't want to see Jamison Williams running at full speed with the ball, having to make it to the first down marker. Who knows if the Chiefs would have been able to stop him. So the pass rush did well there to end that drive. See it from here. Just watch as Chris Jones engages and just sheds immediately. Boom. Unfortunately for him, not quite able to clean up the sack, but that's where Omenihu comes in, and the Chiefs get off the field. Now with 2:07 to go in the game, and the Chiefs up 30-17, the Lions have a 3rd and 1 at their own 36-yard line. Got Jared Goff in the shotgun, a bunch to his left, and Jamison Williams on his right. Motion a receiver out wide left. Goff takes the snap. He drops back, throws over the middle, and it's incomplete, intended for Sam Laporta, setting up 4th down. Again, we're going to look at the Chiefs' defensive coverage and their usage of Nick Bolton. And again, the Chiefs are in that 3-2-5 dime, or 3-2-6 dime, 3 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then 6 defensive backs. 3, 4, 5, 6. They're again running like man match principles here. But again, what is Bolton's responsibility? He's first to the flat. So it seems like they're running some quarters concepts here. So you've got essentially man-to-man coverage unless this guy comes in. And then Bolton, his main responsibility is taking in the first guy that's out to the flat, the wide guy. So again, in coverage, they are just making sure that Bolton is not given any responsibility of following a tight end or receiver, not given any responsibility of any large zones in the middle of the field. They continue on trend of keeping him just isolated against a running back or blitzing, really, on all the key downs here we've seen so far through this game, really starting after the second drive of the game. So this was a major change, and since this happened, the Lions scored 10 points on their first 2 drives, and it's around then that it appears this change was made. They only scored 7 points the rest of the way. So a major strategic choice by Steve Spagnuolo to put Nick Bolton in more advantageous situations, not to have him in situations like covering large swaths of ground in the middle of the field or being forced to run sideline to sideline by more athletic players. And it seems to have served the defense really well, among other adjustments that he made. And it was a big reason why the Chiefs were able to hold the Lions to 17 points.